Alright there guys, and welcome back to a brand new video, and yep, it's early August. You know what that means? It's Premier League predictions time. We did this for the 17-18 season, the 18-19 season, so now it's time to do the 19-20 season. If you guys are new to the Premier League predictions videos, I predict every Premier League club from 20th all the way up to 1st. Who's going to win the league, who's getting relegated, who's getting top 4, who's getting top 6, who's mid-table, all of that good stuff, and explaining why I've put every team in the position that I have put them, since transfer deadline day has ended. So there will be no more transfers before the start of the season, as the opening day is not long away. Right, let's start off in 20th. In 20th position, I think will be Sheffield United. This is a very popular pick. It seems everybody is picking Sheffield United to finish last. It's because the signings of Luke Freeman and Callum Robinson from QPR and Preston, their championship signings going up to the Premier League, it doesn't work. Most of the time, when a player in the championship gets signed by a Premier League club, it usually does not work out for them, especially considering QPR and Preston were both mid-table teams in the championship last season, and they're going up to a team that's just been promoted. They've got an aging David McGoldrick up front, so that's not really. So he won't get probably even 10 goals this season. You know, Sheffield United just they've not done enough business. They've not signed enough Premier League proven players. Like Music from Bournemouth is one that they've signed, and Phil Jagielka from Everton, but they're not that good, are they, anymore? Jagielka's probably nowhere near as good as he used to be. Music's is unproven because he hasn't played many Premier League games. So yeah, that's why I'm putting Sheffield United in last. In 19th position, I think will be Brighton. The reason I think it'll be Brighton is because you probably saw what happened them last season. They were awful last season. They were so bad. Surviving relegation by 2 points because Cardiff just weren't good enough to stay up. They sacked Chris Hughton, probably one of the best managers they've had this century. Definitely the best manager they've had this decade. And they've replaced him with Graham Potter, who took a only recently relegated Swansea to 10th in the Championship, nowhere near the playoffs. Now, I know they've signed Mopé from Bournemouth and Webster from Bristol City. Not Bournemouth, Brentford, and Webster from Bristol City, but again, these are Championship players coming up to a Premier League team. It usually doesn't work out. And not only that, Mopé is a mid-table Championship player from Brentford. They finished 11th last season in the Championship. That is almost bang in the middle of the league. And Webster at Bristol City didn't even make it into the playoffs. So Brighton are spending big money on players that definitely are not Premier League proven. I guess you could say they're Championship proven, but this isn't the Championship. It's the Premier League. So it's not going to mean anything in the grand scheme of things, is it? And that's why I think Brighton's fairy tale Premier League ride will end this season, and they'll be heading. And for the 2020-2021 season, they will be in the Championship. Right, finishing 18th, I think, and I really wish that I didn't have to predict this, but it's going to be a team I like quite a lot. It's Newcastle United. You guys know I'm a big fan of Newcastle. Alright, if I didn't support Man United, I'd probably support Newcastle. I made 2 full seasons of a career mode with them on FIFA 18 last year. So you know I like them a lot because I played 2 full seasons as them, even winning the league. And I think that Newcastle will finish 18th because they've just lost Rafa Benitez, a Champions League winning manager, and they had a year and a half to get him a new contract, and they didn't. So that's Newcastle's fault for not trying to get Rafa a new deal. Then they lost their best two players that they had. They lost Salomon Rondon, he's gone to China to join Rafa Benitez, and they lost Ayoze Perez to Leicester City for 30 million. What can Newcastle say? I mean, they signed Joe Linton, whose best goal scoring season is 8 goals, which is less than what Rondon got last season for Newcastle. And Joe Linton's one was in the Bundesliga. Arguably a league that's a lot easier to score in than the Premier League. And Saint Maximin from Saint Etienne, from Nice, that could be. I mean, he could be a good signing. We don't know, but they did re-sign Andy Carroll on transfer deadline day. Although, when does Andy Carroll actually feature for a season and not get injured? He's still injured now. So he won't be in Arsenal's opening fixture at St James's Park against Arsenal on Sunday. And he's not going to be a massive factor because he's much older now than he was when he first started playing. His breakout season at Newcastle. Then his career went a bit downhill after he went to Liverpool. Then he went to West Ham. So, and also Steve Bruce is their manager. Steve Bruce got relegated with Hull. That was his last Premier League job. He got relegated. In fact, no, it wasn't. He left Hull to go to Aston Villa at the start of the 16-17 season. He got Hull promoted and then left. And he did horrible with Aston Villa. He didn't even get them into the top half of the Championship, I don't think, in the 16-17 season. He wasn't very good for the second half of last season at Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship. So how he's going to keep a Premier League team up, who knows? And the fact that Newcastle have spent £60 million this transfer window shows they never wanted to back Rafa Benitez, because where was the money when he was the manager? It was nowhere. And that's why I think Newcastle will unfortunately get relegated to the Championship. And it would be their 3rd relegation under Mike Ashley. Their 3rd relegation, right, in 10 years. For a club of Newcastle's size, that's terrible. So, narrowly avoiding relegation in 17th place, I think will be one of the highest spending teams in the transfer window in the Premier League this season. Aston Villa, they've spent over £120 million, signing a whole bunch of players, I think maybe 12, possibly more. And Aston Villa, of course, could do a lot better, but they also could get relegated. We saw Fulham spend £100 million last season and still finish second to bottom only because Huddersfield were that bad. But I think Aston Villa will narrowly avoid the drop because the amazing form they took into the last 10 games of the Championship, where they won 10 in a row to get themselves in the playoffs and then won the playoffs. But they don't really have any Premier League proven players. But I think they do have just enough to stay up. I mean, Dean Smith is unproven in the Premier League as a manager. He only took over Villa at halfway through last season after leaving Brentford. So yeah, I think Villa will just narrowly avoid the drop. Finishing in 16th place this season, I think, will be the team that finished in 16th last season, Southampton. This of course will be Ralph Hasenhüttl's first full season as a Premier League manager with Southampton, and he's made some good additions. He's brought in Che Adams from Birmingham. Yes, unproven in the Premier League, but could be a good addition. He's got pace. He scored, but he was Birmingham's top scorer last season. Even in a season that they lost, they got deducted 10 points. He was still their best player. They've signed Danny Ings on a permanent, and if Danny Ings can stay fit, he could pop up with quite a few goals. They've of course lost Charlie Austin on deadline day, as he has signed it for West Brom. But yeah, I think Southampton have definitely bought well and can definitely stay up. They definitely have enough quality, and they won't be in too big of a relegation battle. They'll be down there, but not too far down there. That's why I think they will finish in 16th. In 15th place, I think, will be Burnley. Last season, Burnley had a horrible start to the Premier League season after they were in the Europa League qualifying rounds, and then they got knocked out by, I think it was Aberdeen, they got knocked out by, and it took them 5 games to win once. The season before, they won their first game, so they had a much worse start to the season, but then they finally picked it back up, even if they did get smashed at Turf Moor by 5-1 by Everton on Boxing Day last year. They finally picked it up and started getting good results. And they were, of course, everyone's prayer to stop Manchester City winning the Premier League, but they unfortunately couldn't do it. But yeah, they've brought in Jay Rodriguez back from West Brom, so he could definitely pop up with some goals. They've kept James Tarkowski, which is massive. They have lost Tom Heaton, though, to Aston Villa. So it seems that Nick Pope, who had an amazing 17-18 season for Burnley when they finished 7th, he will be their number one choice, I guess, going forward. So at least they haven't had to sign a replacement keeper, because they have him, and they have the downward spiral of Joe Hart as a backup. So yeah, Burnley definitely, I think, will stay up again this season. Sean Dyche is actually quite a good manager. He knows how to keep teams up, even if he has been relegated with Burnley before. This Burnley team, I think, is good enough to stay up, just like the previous two seasons they have. Right, 14th, I think, will be Bournemouth. I'm pretty sure Bournemouth finished 14th last season. Bournemouth, of course, are now Premier League regulars. We didn't know would they stay up when in their first season in the Premier League, back in the 15-16 season when they came up for the very first time ever, and yes, they did, quite easily. And they're going to have good spells and bad spells. They beat Chelsea 4-0 last season, so that shows that they have amazing. They've got some good talent. They kept Callum Wilson. They've kept Nathan Ake, who they've put a ridiculous 75 million price tag on him. Yeah, he's totally worth the same amount as Van Dijk. No, he's not. And Van Dijk's probably worth over 100 million now. They've kept David Brooks and Ryan Fraser, although David Brooks is injured and won't be playing till, I think, October at the earliest, so they could go on a bad run without him, but when he comes back, they could start going on a good run and get themselves completely away from relegation and any worry and get more towards mid-table. So that's why I think Bournemouth will finish in 14th. In 13th place will be the team I think I think, will be the team that finished 13th last season, Crystal Palace. No, Newcastle finished 13th. No, the team that finished 12th last season, Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have not spent too much. I mean, they brought in Jordan Ayew from Swansea. They've tried to get James McCarthy from Everton, but failed. But the main thing for them has been keeping Wilfried Zaha. That's been the number one thing they've had to do in this transfer window if they want to stay up. And they have. Zaha did not go to Arsenal or Everton. He stayed at Crystal Palace. And as long as he's willing to play for them for another season at least, they're completely fine, and they'll have no problem being completely away from relegation. And that's why I think they'll finish in 13th. In 12th place, I think will be the winners of the Championship, Norwich City. After Norwich were relegated in the 15-16 season, they had a pretty average 16-17 and 17-18 seasons, finishing mid-table in the Championship. But then last season, out of nowhere, Daniel Farke managed to conjure up a master plan and help them win the league. Even after getting rid of James Maddison last season, who was their best player, Teemu Pukki from Finland just came up and started banging the goals in. And they've signed Ralph Farman on loan from Schalke. That's massive. They've signed Dermich off from Borussia Mönchengladbach on a free transfer. That's incredibly impressive as well. A good striker and a really good goalkeeper. And if Pukki can do, I don't know, half of what he did in the Championship, he'll help with Norwich's goals and keeping them and getting them close to mid-table as well. So yeah, Norwich definitely good enough to finish in 12th. In 11th place, I've put the team that finished in 11th place last season, the FA Cup finalists that were smashed 6-0 by Manchester City, Watford. Watford have signed really only Craig Dawson from West Brom. But they've kept Gerard Deulofeu. They've kept Roberto Pereira. They've kept Doucouré. They've kept their important players. And so their squad has not been weakened really at all. And with Craig Dawson's Premier League experience, they've got themselves more chance of clean sheets and an easy 11th place finish. Okay, that's the bottom 10 done. Now on to the top 10. In 10th place, I think, will be West Ham. West Ham are like the literal mid-table, smack bang in the middle of the Premier League team that we every year now. 10th is like West Ham's holy place. It really is. They've signed Fornals from Villarreal and Sebastian Haller from Eintracht Frankfurt, and those two have been impressive in pre-season, so I think the two of them are going to be some great signings. And Manuel Lanzini is back from injury. Yarmolenko is back from injury, so that's like... Well, Yarmolenko is like a new signing because he barely played for West Ham last season. He got like a 6 or 7 month injury. So not that long into the season and didn't play for the rest of it. So he can show West Ham what he really has. They kept hold of Felipe Anderson, which was massive, because he was West Ham's best player last season by a mile. Losing Andy Carroll is not really a big loss for West Ham because, well, he barely played anyway. And I think West Ham have an easy mid-table 10th place finish again. On to 9th place. I think 9th place this season will be Wolves. After winning the championship in the 17-18 season, Wolves had a phenomenal season last season, finishing best of the rest. After the top 6 Premier League teams, Wolves were the best after them. And they had an amazing season. Ruben Neves is still with Wolves. João Moutinho. They made Dendoncker and Raul Jimenez's moves permanent. They made Johnny's move permanent during last season. They've kept the big squad, the amazing squad they had together, and they've signed Patrick Cutrone from AC Milan. But the one thing I think will hinder Wolves a bit this season, of why I think they'll finish slightly lower this season than they did last, is the Europa League. As of recording this, Wolves have just won their third round qualifying match in the Europa League 4-0. So I'm fairly certain Wolves are going to qualify for this season's Europa League to join Arsenal and Manchester United. And I think because of the Europa League giving minimum 6 more games in a season, and potentially 15 if you count all the rest of the matches in the Europa League if they get to the final. So that's a maximum of 15 extra games that they did not have last season, and a minimum of 6 games that they did not have last season. So that's why I think Wolves are going to finish slightly lower and in 9th. The Europa League is going to hinder them a bit. Now, on to 8th place. In 8th, I think, will be Leicester City. The loss of Harry Maguire is massive for them, as he went to Manchester United. He was their best defender, and he is England's best defender, better than any Man City centre-back from England, better than any English centre-back in any team right now. He's better than them all. But Leicester still have Wes Morgan, Johnny Evans and a couple of other centre-backs. They've still got the pace of Jamie Vardy. They've got Ayoze Perez that they signed from Newcastle as another attacking option. He could be your get in behind and flick the ball on kind of striker. We've also got Yuri Tielemans. His loan deal was made permanent. That's massive because he's known as like one of the best young players in the whole world. Of course, unfortunately, Mbappe has taken that spotlight from him. But he's still an amazing player, and he'll be massive for Leicester. They still have Jamie Vardy with his pace, and he's like guaranteeing you 20 goals a season now. Jamie Vardy is a very consistent striker ever since he came to the Premier League back in the 14-15 season. And I think that Leicester will just barely won't have enough to qualify for Europe. Right, in 7th place, I think, will be the team that's known for finishing 7th in the Premier League. It's Everton. Everton have done some very good business this season, specifically signing Moise Kean from Juventus. He's a young 19-year-old Italian striker who stood up to racism in a match for Juventus against Cagliari. And his teammates and manager were actually trying to stop him. Were actually trying to say, don't provoke the fans. He's not provoking the fans, they're provoking him, and he's responding to them. And he celebrated in front of the Cagliari fans when he scored in that match, to say, I don't stand for racism, and neither should anyone else, which he's completely right about. Say no to racism. Very, very important method. So he's a very inspirational player. And with Richarlison still being a pretty decent striker, Andre Gomez loan move becoming permanent, that's huge. So I think Everton will be back and qualify for the Europa League qualifying rounds next season. Whether they'll make it into the Europa League in the 2020-2021 season, I don't know, but they'll at least qualify for the qualifying rounds. Okay, the top six. The top six teams are of course going to finish in the top six. None of them are dropping down. In sixth place, I think, will be Chelsea. A few reasons. Number one, Frank Lampard is a very, very inexperienced manager. He may be their all-time record goal scorer, but he's not a player there anymore. He's a manager. He got 6th with Derby last season, which, for his first ever season in management, considering managers that have had loads of experience, such as Gary Rowett, Steve McLaren, have not been able to do any better than that. And he did that in his first season at Derby. That's incredibly impressive. And he got them to the playoff final and just barely did not get them promoted. But he made them, after he helped Derby in the second leg of the playoff semi-finals go to Ellen Road and show Leeds United up in front of their own fans, beating them 4-2 and winning 4-3 on aggregate. So, of course, Lampard has a transfer ban on him, so he shouldn't be sacked at all this season unless Chelsea finish near the relegation zone, which I'm pretty sure they won't. Alright, this isn't the 15-16 Mourinho season all over again. Of course, the loss of Eden Hazard is why they're not gonna is a massive reason. He's been their best player for the last 6 or 7 seasons consistently. And if it's not been him, he's been second only to Diego Costa. Of course, Costa left Chelsea a couple seasons ago, and Hazard left this season for Real Madrid. So Lampard's going to have to use the youngsters, such as Mason Mount, who we had on loan at Derby last season, Tammy Abraham, who was on loan at Aston Villa last season, Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's been impressive when he was able to play for Chelsea under Maurizio Sarri last season. He'll probably play a lot more than he did. Mateo Kovacic's loan move has been made permanent, and the signing of Christian Pulisic has finally been properly done since he went back on loan to Borussia Dortmund for the second half of last season, after they signed him in January. Pulisic is he's not Hazard, but he's not going to be he's not a Hazard replacement, but I think he will do well. But yeah, Chelsea, it's going to be Europa League for you next season, and Chelsea have the Champions League already to deal with this season because they finished third. They're back, and they won the Europa League. They're back in the Champions League, so that's why I think Chelsea will finish in third, 6th even. Third was last season. Finishing 5th, I think, will be Arsenal. Yep, I think Arsenal will finish 5th for the 3rd season in a row, yet again missing out on the Europa League. No, the Champions League. They'll be in the Europa League again. They lost Lauren Koscielny to Bordeaux. Mustafi's pretty useless. Carl Jenkinson left for Nottingham Forest. Hector Bellerin for some reason is getting injured a lot more. Kolasinac and Monreal are not amazing. Now, Arsenal have signed Kieran Tierney from Celtic, but it's Celtic. They walk the Scottish Premiership every season. Boring. So how do we know how good he really is? Well, this season we'll be able to find out if he's as good as Arsenal think he is for wanting to sign him. Nicolas Pepe is a massive signing from Lille. That's massive. Him, Aubameyang and Lacazette up front, that's going to be a deadly strike force all season. This season. But again, Arsenal lost Aaron Ramsey to Juventus on a free transfer. Their defence still isn't as good as it could be. And I'm not entirely sure if David Luiz has signed for Arsenal on deadline day, whether it was able to, if they got it done in time. I'm not entirely sure, but if they have signed him, that's going to solidify Arsenal's defence a bit, but still not enough to get them in the top 4. Okay, the top 4. Finishing 4th this season, I think, will be my team, which is Manchester United. I think this will be the season where Manchester United are back in the top 4 after they finished 6th last season, in what could possibly be their worst Premier League season ever. Because if you think about it, the David Moyes season, they finished 7th, but they won the Community Shield and got to the Champions League quarterfinals. Last season, they finished 6th, didn't win a single trophy, and got just as far in the Champions League. So you could argue that last season was Manchester United's worst season they've in their history in the Premier League. But the three signings Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has made this transfer window have been very impressive. We have Daniel James coming in from Swansea. Yes, Swansea finished 10th last season in the Championship. Not very good for a team that just barely got relegated the season before. But he looks rapid. He had an amazing game in Swansea's 3-2 defeat to Man City, which I'm still not over, because 2 of those City goals were cheating. City's second one was not a penalty, and their third one was offside. No VAR on a Championship ground. How ironic. Of course, only City get away, because City get away with everything. And that's the reason City won the FA Cup, because they got lucky, so lucky. They did not deserve to win it at all. But yeah, Daniel James is another option for the strike force. Man United now have definitely one of the best defences in the Premier League, as they signed Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Crystal Palace for 50 million at right back to be Antonio Valencia's long-term replacement, with Diego Dalot probably popping in and out of the right back's position, maybe even playing left back a bit. We have, and of course, the most expensive defender in the world, Harry Maguire. I've already said it in this video, Harry Maguire is the best defender from England. Better than John Stones, better than Chris Smalling, better than Phil Jones, better than Gary Cahill, better than any defender from England currently. Those two are massive for the defence, as they've given United one of the best defences in the league. However, our midfield is shocking. We have a very uninterested and unenthusiastic Paul Pogba. We have Fred, who was a waste of 50 million last season. We've got Andres Pereira, who could score a wonder goal or just not exist in a match. And we have Scott McTominay, who is not great, but he is improving. Ever since Jose Mourinho left United in December last year, McTominay has definitely improved under Solskjaer. That's definitely a fact. McTominay has gotten better, and I think under Solskjaer will continue to get better. Of course, we have Martial up front. We have Martial, Rashford, Mason Greenwood, and Daniel James as our attacking options. But United did lose Romelu Lukaku on transfer deadline day to Inter Milan. So we don't have a target man anymore. We did, but we don't anymore. Okay, the top 3. Yep, it's the top 3 You already know who the top three are, you just don't know what order yet. Coming in third place, I think, will be Spurs. Just like last season, they were in third for so long, briefly went up to second in December when Manchester City lost three games in 4 matches around Christmas, which was amazing to see, and yet they still won the league. The signing of Ndombele is huge, as he is a pretty good and direct replacement for Moussa Dembele, who went to China. Paulo Dybala and Philippe Coutinho could have come to Spurs, but they haven't. Lo Celso has come in from Real Betis on loan. That's a huge signing for Spurs. And I think they just still don't have enough to challenge Liverpool and Man City. Because remember, Liverpool and Man City both finished over 20 points ahead of everyone else. The highest points won by in a Premier League season in history. Liverpool and City were more points ahead of third place last season than Man City were over Man United the season before that. So yeah, that's why. So Spurs they've got an amazing squad. They were in the Champions League final last season, which was an amazing achievement for them, but they didn't win it, of course. Liverpool did. And I just still don't think they have the quality to challenge for the Premier League title, especially with Harry Kane does not have a backup striker. Fernando Llorente has left Spurs. I guess Son or Lucas Moura could be his replacement as a striker whenever he's not playing or if he's injured, but they're not strikers. Lucas Moura is more of a right winger and Son is more of a left winger, or just behind the striker in a number 10 role. But yeah, that's why I think Spurs will be finishing third. On to the top two. Finishing in second, I think, will be the team that finished second last season, losing the Premier League by 1 singular point. Liverpool. Liverpool had the best season in their history, whether it was in the Premier League or before it was even called the Premier League in 1992 and further back in the 80s and 90s. Mostly the 80s when they won everything. Liverpool scored 97 points last season, more points than they've ever scored in any season in their history, and they still did not win the league. They came so close, and they deserved it way more than Man City did last season. Man City lost 4 times the amount of games Liverpool lost. Yes, City won more, but they also lost more. Liverpool didn't lose a single match at home. They went unbeaten at Anfield all season in the Premier League. Mo Salah and Sadio Mane both collectively won the Golden Boot along with Aubameyang last season. And they're the champions of Europe. They won the Champions League last season. So they are the best team in Europe. Manchester City are just the best team in the country. Liverpool is all of Europe. And it would not surprise me if Liverpool were in the Champions League final again this season and possibly win their 7th Champions League trophy. But yeah, Liverpool have not done really any business in the transfer window at all. They have pretty much the exact same squad from last season, although Mignolet has left to go to Club Brugge in Belgium, so they've signed Adrian as their backup instead. Of course, they've still got Mane, Salah, Firmino, their trio of strikers. Oxlade-Chamberlain is back. And also, did you watch the Community Shield between Liverpool and City on Sunday? Liverpool dominated that second half. They hit the post in the first half. They hit the bar. They hit the bar in the second half, and the ball just barely didn't cross the line. Kyle Walker cleared the ball off the line in stoppage time at the end of the match. Liverpool dominated Man City, but yet City yet again got lucky, and it went to penalties, and they scored all of them, and Liverpool didn't. I'm sick to death of seeing City win everything based on luck. They were the luckiest team in the Premier League last season, definitely. You thought Liverpool were lucky. City had double the amount of luck that Liverpool had. I'm like the only Man United fan that actually hates Man City more than I hate Liverpool. I would very much rather watch Liverpool win the Premier League this season than Manchester City. City have won more Premier League titles than any other club this decade, because this decade ends at the halfway point of the season, because next year it's 2020 and we're in a new decade. City have dominated the 2010s, winning 4 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, but they still have not won the Champions League, and they've not ever even gotten close. And this season, that's the same. They will not get close to winning the Champions League at all, because money does not win you the Champions League, City. But yeah, the Liverpool squad is exactly the same as last season. If last season's squad wasn't good enough to win the league, how is this season's squad going to be good enough when it's the same? Meaning, I've predicted that the Premier League winners for the 2019-2020 season will be Manchester City. They've signed Rodri for £60+ million to replace Fernandinho. They've signed João Cancelo from Juventus, which really annoyed me because that is such a great signing. And they've given Danilo to Juventus. And Man City have just improved their squad again. So they could win the league this season by way more than they won it last season. It went down to the final day of the league season last season. This season, I don't think that'll happen. And if it does, Liverpool will have to play even better this season than they did last season. It's as simple as that. Liverpool have to score 100 points or more to win the league, it seems. That's what it seems you have to do. You actually have to score triple-digit figures to beat Manchester City to the Premier League title now. And yet they don't. Yes, City just don't deserve to win the league. So many decisions go in their favour. So many red cards that any of the other 19 teams in the league would have got a red card for, but City don't. And as I mentioned, the Community Shield match, City were massively lucky. They got dominated by Liverpool. Liverpool showed you're really not that good. And look, it does play a massive part in how you win everything. It's the same in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. City get lucky draws. They get draws against like Championship teams, League One teams, or Premier League teams that are very far down the table. Such easy matches for them. It's so annoying. In the Carabao Cup, Man City had to go through Fulham, Burton, Leicester. They won on penalties against Leicester. They didn't even deserve to win. While Chelsea, who also got to the final last season, had to go through Arsenal. No, they didn't. That was Spurs did that. They had to go through Liverpool, Spurs. FA Cup, City had to go through Rotherham, who were a relegation battling Championship team. They had Watford in the final. First in the Premier League versus 11th in the Premier League. Of course City were going to win. And as you'd expect, they smashed Watford 6-0. So Man City won the domestic treble, which, well done to them. Guess what? That's the domestic treble. Try winning the real treble, the Champions League, Premier League and FA Cup. Try winning that. Yeah, I bet, yeah, you can't. Man United have won it. I don't see City doing it. And City won't win. City will probably win the domestic treble again this season. They'll get lucky in the Carabao Cup with draws and have easy teams to beat, and they'll get lucky in the FA Cup with easy draws again. Because everything goes in Manchester City's favour. And the fact that they buy the league every season, and this season they've definitely bought the league. They spent over 120 million. So yeah, they've easily bought the league this season. So that is going to be the end of my 2019-2020 Premier League predictions. If you guys think my predictions could seem accurate to the way the teams have played, let me know in the comments. Give me your predictions if you want in the comments as well. I'm always eager to see what everyone else is saying. Whew. So if you guys have enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, follow me on all my social medias, and until next time guys, catch you later.